I never thought that a routine car repair for my wife's vehicle would turn into the nightmare that destroyed everything I believed in. April 2024 came warm to Chula Vista. I'm Owen, and I'd been working as an auto electrician for 15 years. My job was always straightforward: diagnostics, repairs, customers pick up their cars, and everyone satisfied. I never imagined my profession would become the key to the most horrifying discovery of my life. Sophia and I had lived together for nearly 20 years. We met when she was 28 and I was 26. She'd already survived one failed marriage that lasted 5 years and ended 3 years before we met. Maybe that's why I thought she'd value our relationship more. We didn't have children. At first we postponed it, then somehow got used to living just the two of us with our massive Caucasian shepherd, Rex, whom we got as a puppy 6 years ago. Sophia worked as a psychotherapist at a private clinic, helping people sort out their relationships and family problems. The irony of the situation hit me later when I realized she was giving advice to others on how to save their marriages while she herself. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Everything started in mid-April. Sophia returned from a work conference in Seattle where she'd flown for 3 days. She seemed a bit distant, but I attributed it to fatigue after the flight. She often traveled to similar events and I never worried. Why would I? We'd been married for 20 years, trusted each other completely. A week after her return, Sophia asked me to look at her Honda Accord. She complained something was clicking near the dashboard. I took the car for the weekend to work on it calmly in the garage. When I opened the glove compartment to check the wiring, a pair of men's sunglasses fell out. Expensive Ray-Bans, definitely not mine. I'd never worn that style. My heart ached, but I told myself it could be something innocent. Maybe one of her clients left them in her car? Though Sophia never drove clients anywhere. I continued checking the interior and found a receipt from a hotel in Coronado. The date was 3 weeks ago, a Saturday. I remembered that day. Sophia said she was going to a barbecue at her colleague Laura's house with her husband David in Coronado. She came back late that evening, said they stayed up late, drank a lot, so Laura suggested she wait it out. It seemed logical to me then. Coronado is 15 kilometers away, but it's better not to drive after drinking. But then why a hotel receipt? I felt the floor disappear from under my feet. My hands trembled as I continued searching. Under the passenger seat I found a small bottle of men's cologne. Not my brand. The pieces were starting to form a picture I desperately didn't want to see. The next morning when Sophia went for a run with Rex, I did something I'd never done before. I decided to check her smartwatch. She'd left it charging in the bedroom. The Apple Watch synced with my MacBook through our shared iCloud account that we'd set up years ago for convenience. What I saw changed everything. The geolocation data showed that 3 weeks ago she was indeed in Coronado, but not at Laura's house. She spent 6 hours at the Lowe's Coronado Bay Resort. I checked further, there were other locations too. A motel in Imperial Beach. Some house in Bonita that definitely didn't belong to anyone we knew. My stomach twisted into knots as I scrolled through the data, each location a dagger to my heart. But the worst part was the heart rate data. I knew the watch tracked her heartbeat. On those days when she was supposedly at work meetings, her pulse jumped to 130 to 140 beats per minute. And it lasted for an hour, sometimes more. I'd been an auto electrician long enough to know what that kind of sustained elevated heart rate meant, and it wasn't from stressful work meetings. The messages were deleted, but fragments remained in the backup files. Can't wait to see you, you drive me crazy, my husband went to his sister's for the weekend, we can spend the night together. Each word felt like acid burning through my chest. 20 years of marriage and this is what it had come to. I felt sick to my stomach. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the phone. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. But the evidence was right there, undeniable and cruel. Miranda, my younger sister, lived in Temecula, an hour's drive from us. 2 months ago I really did go to her place for the weekend, helping with renovations. Sophia said she'd stay home, had a lot of work. Now I understood what kind of work she had. The realization hit me like a freight train. I'd been played for a fool in my own marriage. I took screenshots of everything. Geolocation data, heart rate graphs, message fragments. Downloaded it all to a separate flash drive and hid it in my work locker at the auto shop. I was methodical about it, making sure I had multiple copies, organizing the evidence chronologically. My hands moved on autopilot while my mind struggled to process the betrayal. That evening Sophia came home from work cheerful. She talked about her day, about her clients, about how she was helping couples find common ground. I sat and looked at her, unable to believe it. This woman with whom I'd lived for 20 years, with whom I'd shared everything, was giving me lessons on preserving relationships while sleeping with someone else. The hypocrisy was staggering, almost surreal in its audacity. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing my stare. "Yeah, just tired," I replied, forcing a smile that felt like broken glass on my face. The next day I went to Thad, my best friend and colleague at the auto shop. We'd known each other for 20 years, and I trusted him more than anyone else. He was working under a Ford F-150 when I approached, and I waited until he rolled out from under it before speaking. "I need your help," I told him during lunch break. "But this stays between us." Thad immediately understood from my face that something serious had happened. We'd been friends long enough that he could read me like a book. We went to the break room where we could talk privately, and I closed the door behind us. I told him everything. Showed him photos of the sunglasses, receipts, data from the watch. Thad went pale, his sandwich forgotten on the table. He'd been at our wedding, had watched our marriage for 2 decades, considered Sophia a friend too. This news hit him almost as hard as it had hit me. "God, Owen. How long has this been going on?" His voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know. Maybe months. Maybe longer. The earliest location data I found was from 3 months ago, but who knows how long before that." The uncertainty made it worse somehow, not knowing the full extent of the betrayal. "What are you going to do?" "Find out who he is. And then I'll decide." My voice was calm, but inside I was screaming. I needed to know everything before I could figure out my next move. It turned out to be easier than I thought. 2 days later, Sophia said again that she was going to a work meeting on Saturday morning. I took the day off and followed her. I'd never tailed anyone before, but years of driving in city traffic had made me good at staying inconspicuous. I kept a few cars back, changed lanes strategically, made sure she never spotted me. She really did drive to Coronado, but not to a hotel. She stopped at a small house with a view of the bay. I parked a few houses down and waited. The neighborhood was quiet, upscale, with well-maintained yards and expensive cars in driveways. 15 minutes later, a man around 40 drove up to the same house in a Toyota Camry. Tall, athletic build, wearing glasses, those same Ray-Bans I'd found in Sophia's car. Sophia came out to meet him. They hugged. Kissed. Not quickly or awkwardly, but long and passionately, like lovesick teenagers who couldn't keep their hands off each other. There was a familiarity to their embrace that spoke of multiple encounters, of comfort and intimacy built over time. Then they went inside the house and the door closed behind them. I sat in my pickup and stared blankly at that house. My hands trembled so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. I wanted to break down the door, jump on them, scream. But instead I just took several photos on my phone and drove away. Confronting them then would have been satisfying for a moment, but I needed to be smart about this. I needed evidence, documentation, everything properly recorded. At home I couldn't sit still. Rex sensed my mood and didn't leave my side, nudging my hand with his nose. I hugged his big shaggy head and almost cried for the first time in many years. The dog's unconditional love was the only pure thing left in my life right then. By evening I pulled myself together. I found the address of that house on the internet through Google Maps. Found out the owner, Rudolph Martinez, meteorologist, works at the local weather station. 42 years old, divorced 3 years ago. I spent hours researching him online, finding his social media profiles, his professional background, trying to understand who this man was who had destroyed my marriage. Everything fell into place like a mosaic. Sophia flew to a conference in Seattle 3 months ago. Probably met him there. Meteorologists have professional conferences too. Maybe even on the plane. And then it turned out he lived just 15 kilometers from us. What a coincidence. What irony of fate. The universe had conspired to put them together while tearing my life apart. I started planning. At first I thought about just packing my things and leaving. But then I realized that wasn't enough. Sophia had to answer for everything. Not just to me but to the world where she pretended to be an expert on relationships. The hypocrisy of it all fueled my determination. She couldn't just walk away from this unscathed. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. I called a lawyer. Matthew Harrison was one of the best divorce attorneys in San Diego. Expensive but effective. His office was downtown, all glass and steel and leather furniture that smelled like money and power. When I sat across from him and laid out my evidence, his eyes lit up like a predator seeing prey. I have evidence of infidelity, I told him at the first consultation. Geolocation data, heart rate data from a smartwatch, photos of her with her lover, hotel receipts. I have timestamps, dates, locations. Everything documented. Matthew smiled, the kind of smile that probably terrified opposing counsel in court. California is a no-fault divorce state, but evidence like this will help with property division, especially considering your wife earns more. The court can take her behavior into account. This is solid stuff, Owen. Really solid. There's one more thing, I said. I want to protect my finances. I have about $25,000 in savings that I've been putting away for years. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine, earned through long hours and hard work, and I'd be damned if I'd lose it all in the divorce. Buy bearer bonds through me as your attorney before filing for divorce, Matthew advised, leaning back in his expensive leather chair. It's legal, but they won't be counted in the community property if we do everything correctly. It's a gray area, but a legitimate one. We'll make sure everything is documented properly. I did exactly that. Within 3 days, my savings were converted and safely hidden in a legal loophole that would protect them from the divorce proceedings. The next 2 weeks were the hardest in my life. I lived in the same house with Sophia, slept next to her, talked to her, pretended everything was fine. And inside, everything was burning. Every smile she gave me felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Every time she said, "I love you" before bed, I wanted to scream the truth in her face. But I held back, waiting for the right moment. Once I couldn't help myself and asked, trying to keep my voice casual, "Sophia, are you happy in our marriage?" She looked at me surprised, setting down the medical journal she'd been reading. "Of course. Why do you ask?" "Just sometimes it seems like we've drifted apart from each other. Like we're roommates more than spouses." I watched her face carefully, looking for any crack in her facade. She was silent for a moment, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt? Calculation? Then she said, "Maybe a little. But that's normal after so many years together. The important thing is that we're together. We have history, Owen. That counts for something." I nodded, while rising in my throat. But I knew it was a lie. We weren't together. She was with Rudolph and I was alone. I'd been alone for months, maybe years, and hadn't even known it. In early May, I finally made my next move. I called Laura, Sophia's colleague. We'd met several times at work events, barbecues, holiday parties. She seemed nice enough, though Sophia was closer to her than I was. "Hi, Laura. This is Owen. I wanted to clarify, did you really have a barbecue 3 weeks ago?" I kept my voice light, casual, as if it was just a simple question. A pause on the other end. When she spoke, I could hear the confusion in her voice. "Barbecue? No, Owen. We didn't have anything in April. The last one was on St. Patrick's Day in March. Why do you ask?" "I see. Thank you." My voice was flat now, the confirmation hitting me like a physical blow even though I'd already known the truth. I hung up. The last hope that I'd mixed something up disappeared like smoke. Another lie, another deception, another nail in the coffin of our marriage. That same evening I told Sophia I was going to Miranda's for the weekend. She'd asked for help again. Sophia just nodded, didn't even ask for details. She was probably already planning how she'd spend those 2 days with Rudolph. The ease with which she accepted my absence told me everything I needed to know about her priorities. But I didn't go to my sister's. Instead, I rented a room at a motel in Imperial Beach and started watching Rudolph's house. The motel was cheap and grimy, the kind of place where people minded their own business and didn't ask questions. Perfect for my purposes. On Saturday morning, Sophia arrived there. Stayed all day. I watched from my car, taking photos, documenting everything with timestamps. They only came out in the evening. Went to dinner at a waterfront restaurant. I followed at a distance and photographed them through the window. They sat at a table, held hands, laughed. Sophia looked happier than I'd seen her in years. More animated, more alive. With me, she'd been going through the motions. With him, she was truly present. That hurt more than almost anything else. On Sunday morning, I returned home earlier than Sophia expected. She hadn't come back yet. When she finally showed up at 2 in the afternoon, she looked relaxed, happy, like someone without a care in the world. Her hair was still damp from a shower, his shower, I realized with a sick feeling. "How's Miranda?" she asked, kissing me on the cheek with lips that had kissed another man hours before. "Fine," I replied, fighting the urge to recoil from her touch. "How was your weekend?" "Boring. Did some cleaning, watched some shows. You know, the usual." Another lie, delivered with the ease of long practice. I couldn't live like this anymore. The charade was killing me faster than the truth ever could. On Monday I filed for divorce. Matthew delivered all the documents to court along with evidence of infidelity, photos, smartwatch data, receipts. Everything organized in neat folders with tabs and timestamps. Professional, thorough, damning. That evening, when Sophia came home from work, I handed her the papers. My hand was steady even though my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. "What's this?" she asked, going pale as she recognized the legal letterhead. "Divorce petition. And evidence of your infidelity with Rudolph Martinez." I kept my voice neutral, matter of fact, though I wanted to scream. She froze. In her eyes I saw shock, fear, and then anger. Not remorse, not shame, but anger that she'd been caught. That told me everything about who she really was. "You were spying on me?" Her voice rose to a near shriek, and Rex retreated to his bed in the corner, whining softly. "You were cheating on me," I replied calmly, though my insides were churning. "How many months, Sophia? Or has it been a year already? 2 years? How long have I been the fool in this marriage?" She sank into a chair, holding the papers with trembling hands. Her face went through a series of expressions: shock, fear, calculation, defiance. I watched her try to figure out her next move, try to find an angle that would save her. "Owen, I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear how it just happened, or how you didn't mean for it to go this far, or any of the other predictable lines people say when they get caught. It's not what you think." The classic cheater's defense, as old as infidelity itself. "Really? So what is it? You accidentally spent the night in a hotel with a strange man? Accidentally kissed him outside his house? Accidentally lied to me for months? Please enlighten me about what I'm supposedly misunderstanding." Sophia started crying and I felt nothing. The tears that once would have moved me to comfort her now just seemed like another manipulation, another act in the long performance of our dying marriage. I didn't want it to happen like this. I met him on a plane to a conference. We just talked. And then it turned out he lives here in Coronado and... She trailed off, realizing how weak her justification sounded. "And you decided it was fate?" I interrupted her. 20 years, Sophia. 20 years I trusted you. 20 years I was faithful to you. 20 years I built a life with you. And you threw it away for what? Excitement? Passion? A break from the monotony? "You don't understand," she shouted, standing up now, papers scattering to the floor. "I haven't felt anything for you in years. We just existed next to each other like roommates." The spark was gone, Owen. It's been gone for so long I couldn't even remember what it felt like. Her words should have hurt more than they did, but I'd already grieved our marriage. I'd spent the last few weeks mourning what we'd had, or what I'd thought we had. Now I was just numb. "Then why didn't you say something? Why didn't you suggest we separate or go to therapy? You're a therapist yourself, for God's sake. You help people with these exact problems." The hypocrisy of it all still astounded me. She was silent, and in that silence was the answer. She'd wanted to have it both ways, the security and stability of our marriage, and the excitement of her affair. She'd wanted her cake and to eat it too, and she'd thought she could get away with it forever. "You know what's worst?" I continued, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "You went to work every day and gave advice to people about how to save their relationships, how to restore trust, how to work on their marriages. And you slept with another man. You're not just a cheater, Sophia. You're a hypocrite of the highest order." "Owen, please." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Pack your things," I said. "You can live here until the court decides about the house, but I'm moving to the guest room. And Rex stays with me. You can't take the dog." There was genuine panic in her voice now. Rex was the one thing she did seem to genuinely care about. "I can't. He's more attached to me. And you know it. He's always been my dog more than yours." It was true. Rex followed me everywhere, slept next to my side of the bed, waited by the door for me to come home from work. The following months were hell, but a different kind of hell than the deception had been. At least now everything was out in the open. Sophia hired her own attorney, tried to prove the evidence was obtained illegally. But Matthew was better. All the smartwatch data was from a shared account I had legal access to. The photos were taken in public places. The sunglasses and receipts were found in a car I also used. Every piece of evidence was bulletproof, obtained through perfectly legal means. The court sided with me. Considering the infidelity and the fact that Sophia earned more and could support herself, I was awarded 70% of the assets. The house, most of the savings, Rex. It was more than I'd even hoped for, but Matthew had argued the case brilliantly, painting Sophia as someone who had violated the fundamental trust of marriage while maintaining the resources to rebuild her life. But I didn't stop there. The anger, the betrayal, the months of lies, they demanded more than just a favorable divorce settlement. Sophia had to truly understand the consequences of her actions. I gathered all the evidence and anonymously sent it to the management of the clinic where Sophia worked. I added a note. A psychotherapist who helps couples preserve relationships is herself cheating on her husband of 20 years. Can her professional advice be trusted? Additionally, there are concerns she may have discussed confidential client information with her lover, a serious breach of professional ethics. I knew the allegation about client confidentiality might not be true, but it would force an investigation. And even if they found nothing, the seed of doubt would be planted. Her colleagues would wonder. Her clients would question. Her reputation would be tarnished permanently. 2 weeks later, Sophia lost her job. The clinic conducted an internal investigation and decided the scandal could damage their reputation. They couldn't have a therapist on staff who couldn't maintain her own marriage, who had violated the very principles she counseled others about. The irony was almost poetic. Miranda, my sister, was the only one who knew about my actions. I told her everything one night over beers at her place in Temecula, needing someone to talk to, someone who would understand. Are you sure you did the right thing? She asked me over the phone a few days after Sophia lost her job. There was concern in her voice, but not judgment. Yes, I replied without hesitation. She destroyed our life. Let her feel the consequences now. She doesn't get to walk away from this and continue pretending to be an expert on relationships. That's not justice. That's not right. What about that man? Rudolph? Miranda asked, always practical, always thinking ahead. Oh, that's a separate story. I have plans for him too. I called Rudolph a week later. Got his number from his weather station's website. He was listed as a senior meteorologist, part of their public outreach team. When he answered, I could hear surprise in his voice when I introduced myself. You know, Sophia's free now, I told him, keeping my voice conversational, almost friendly. You two can be together officially. No more sneaking around, no more lies. Isn't that what you wanted? Silence hung on the other end of the line. I could practically hear him calculating, trying to figure out what I wanted, where this conversation was going. Listen, man, he finally replied, and I could hear the weaseling in his voice. It was just, we didn't plan anything serious. It was supposed to be casual, you know? Just something fun. Really? Because Sophia seemed very much in love. She threw away a 20-year marriage for you. That doesn't sound casual to me. I let the accusation hang there. I don't want problems. I have work, reputation. And there it was, the truth. He was a coward, someone who wanted the excitement of an affair but none of the responsibility of a real relationship. I understand, I said, my voice hardening. So when it was all secret, interesting, but now when you can be together openly, not so much? When there are consequences and commitments, suddenly you're not interested anymore? Don't judge me. I didn't know she was married when we met. The lie was so transparent it was almost insulting. Bullshit. Hotel receipts, sunglasses in her car. All that was months ago. You knew perfectly well. You just didn't care because it didn't affect you. But now it does, and you're running like the coward you are. He hung up. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Let Sophia see what her great love was really made of, nothing but selfishness and cowardice. A week later, Sophia called me. She was crying, her voice thick with tears and desperation. Part of me felt satisfied, part of me felt nothing at all. He won't answer my calls, she said. Rudolph blocked me everywhere. People say he's seeing some woman from his work now. Like I never existed. Like what we had meant nothing. And what do you want to hear from me? I asked, genuinely curious what she thought I could offer her now. I lost everything, Owen. My job, my home, you. Her voice broke on the last word. You made your own choice, Sophia. I'm sorry, but these are the consequences of your actions. You don't get to cheat, get caught, and then expect sympathy. That's not how this works. I thought he loved me. She sounded so small, so broken. For a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Maybe he did. While it was just an affair, a secret, an escape from real life. But when it came time to take responsibility, he ran. Like most affair partners do. They want the fantasy, not the reality. And now you're learning that the hard way. She cried quietly on the other end. I let her, feeling oddly detached from her pain. This woman had been my wife for 20 years, and now she was a stranger whose tears meant nothing to me. I really am sorry about how everything turned out, I said, and I meant it. Not sorry for her, but sorry that our 20 years had come to this. But I can't help you. I need to move on with my life. And you need to figure out yours. I hung up. Stood there for a moment with the phone in my hand, feeling the weight of everything that had happened, everything that was over now. Rex came over and pressed against my leg and I reached down to scratch his ears. In July the divorce was officially finalized. Sophia moved out of the house. I heard from mutual acquaintances that she'd found work at another clinic in El Cajon for less pay, living in a rented apartment, trying to rebuild her reputation one client at a time. Some people felt sorry for her, others thought she got what she deserved. I didn't care either way. And me? I stayed in our house with Rex. Thad and Miranda often come over. We grill in the backyard, sit on the terrace, watch the sunset over the Chula Vista Hills. It's peaceful in a way my life hasn't been for a long time. The house feels like mine now, not like a stage where I played the role of unsuspecting husband. Am I lonely? Yes. Does it hurt? More than I like to admit. 20 years don't just disappear. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and reach for Sophia before remembering she's gone. Sometimes I see something funny and want to tell her about it before reality crashes back in. But I know what I did was right. Sophia betrayed not just me. She betrayed everything we believed in, everything we built together. She betrayed the very principles she claimed to uphold professionally. Rex lies at my feet, his massive head on my knees. He's the only one who remained faithful to the end, the only relationship that survived intact. I scratch behind his ears and he makes that contented grumbling sound that always makes me smile. Last week I removed Sophia's last things from the garage. Found old photos there, us young, happy in love. I look at them and can't believe the woman in the photo and the one who betrayed me are the same person. When did she change? Or had she always been capable of this and I just never saw it? I'll never know, and maybe that's for the best. But life goes on. Thad is persuading me to start dating. Miranda says I need a fresh start. Maybe they're right. I've started going to a gym, joined a hiking group, been spending more time with friends. Slowly, carefully, I'm building a new life from the ruins of the old one. I don't trust easily anymore. Maybe I'll never marry again. The thought of being that vulnerable again, of giving someone that much power to hurt me, terrifies me in a way nothing else does. But I survived. I went through this hell and remained standing. That counts for something. And Sophia? She got what she deserved. Lost the love that turned out to be an illusion. Lost the reputation she'd built over years. Lost the home and stability she'd taken for granted. Everything she'd thought was secure crumbled to dust in her hands. Sometimes in the evening when I sit on the terrace with a beer in hand and Rex sleeping at my feet, I think, do I regret anything? Maybe I should have just left quietly without revenge? The question haunts me sometimes in quiet moments. No, she had to answer. Not just for the cheating but for all the lies, for the hypocrisy, for destroying trust that was built over 20 years. For making me doubt my own judgment, my own reality. For all the nights she lay beside me after being with him. For every "I love you" that was a lie. She earned every consequence that came her way. Rex raises his head and looks at me with his intelligent eyes. Dogs understand betrayal in their own way. They know who's loyal and who isn't. I scratch him behind the ear and feel grateful for his unwavering presence. We'll manage, buddy, I tell him. We always manage. The wind from the bay brings the smell of the ocean. Somewhere in Coronado, Rudolph probably sits with his new girlfriend and doesn't even think about Sophia. Somewhere in El Cajon, Sophia tries to piece together the fragments of her life, probably telling herself she's the victim somehow. And I'm here. In my house, with a faithful dog, with friends and family who supported me through the darkest time of my life. I lost 20 years of my life to a lie, but I won freedom from deception. I won my self-respect back. I won the right to build a new life on my own terms. And you know what? It was worth it. Every painful moment, every difficult decision, every consequence I ensured she faced, worth it. The sun sets over Chula Vista, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It's beautiful in a way I couldn't appreciate when I was living in the shadow of lies. Now I can see clearly, feel truly, live authentically. The betrayal broke me, but I rebuilt myself stronger, wiser, more careful but not broken. Tomorrow I'll wake up in my own house, in my own bed, with my dog beside me and my conscience clear. I'll go to work, come home, live my life without lies or deception. It's not the life I planned, not the future I imagined, but it's mine. Completely, honestly, truly mine. And that's enough. For now, that's more than enough. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.